Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we're talking about The Birdcage today. A 25-year-old film at this point.
Yes.
As you were just remarking, and I was thinking at the start, you know, I think if this was made today in the same way, certain things would not fly.
That is true.
Which is a shame, because I had a fantastic time.
I think it's Mike Nichols' best film.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do. I was, because I've just read this biography by Mark Harris on Mike Nichols, and it's an extraordinary life. And this, maybe aside from The Graduate, was his biggest hit. I mean, this made $157 million in the US. So, a huge, huge hit.
On a $31 million budget.
Written by Elaine May, and, the writing is fabulous. But anyway, just to go back to the life, I was thinking they're all kind of quality films, they're all serious projects. A lot of them are literary adaptations or adaptations of plays, right? Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, things like that.
As this is as well.
As this is. But none of them are my favorite films. Yeah, they're always worthy, with good moments, but, kind of none of them are my favorite films. And some of them are not very good at all, really, like I think Woof. And some are forgettable. I mean, I think the one with Harrison Ford, Forgetting Henry or something like that, I saw it. I remember going to see it, but I can't remember anything about it, really. He's a director who's fabulous with actors, who kind of made his reputation that way. But really, aside from The Graduate, which, I've never really liked, actually, though, it's a landmark classic, it's a cultural classic. I saw it played on a huge screen in Bologna, and it really played, there was like an incredible reaction from the audience. So, I just think that maybe the fault in that maybe is me. But, his career after the 1980s, he did Gilda Radner's live film, he did Silkwood, Biloxi Blues, which is just a Neil Simon adaptation, in which, again, Matthew Broderick was very charming, but very forgettable. Postcards from the Edge, which has wonderful moments, but, also has, like, dull passages, really. And then, the one that you might have seen are Closer and Charlie Wilson's War.
I haven't seen Closer. I'd heard that Closer wasn't very good. The one I have seen is Primary Colours, which I liked enormously.
I like that enormously as well. And interestingly enough, that's also written by Elaine May, I think. Yeah, and John Travolta, I think, is wonderful in that, actually.
Yeah, and it has a similar dismissively scathing attitude to the kind of cravenness of politics that this does.
Yes. Okay. But, I mean, I think this is a genius of a film, actually. I mean, it's a farce. It's very theatrical in every way.
Oh, absolutely.
Actually.
I mean, it's about the build-up to the chamber play, which is the second half of the film.
That's right. And even things like the musical numbers or the pratfalls, or, it is like almost a theatrical comedy of manners, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I don't remember laughing so much in a film.
No, you have not laughed so much in a film, to the point where actually you were drowning out some of the dialogue.
Yeah, sorry. I was hurting my rib.
Yeah, you were
laughing
really going for it.
So much.
It was extremely funny, and all the laughs were earned. I mean, it's an interesting thing, because you were saying some of the pratfalls were cheap, and... they were, but at the same time, you didn't feel like you'd been manipulated into laughing.
They all work.
They work, and they come out organically. They make sense. The characters make sense. It's enormously funny, and also you just mentioned offhand halfway through. God, it's such a great script. Elaine May's such a great writer, and it really is.
Yeah,
I mean, it really properly is. Like there's such a delicate balance. Actually, it works very, very well with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane as well. Especially Robin Williams. Their performances match the script in that there's this really delicate balance of really heartfelt, serious, meaningful character moments and funny lines. Whether it's a funny line that a character actually means, that very often a character is making a joke, and it's a snarky joke or whatever it might be, but they're deliberately making funny comments, or whether it's a joke for our benefit that the characters don't really see.
This gets laughs from everything, from decor, from intonation, from the books that people were reading, just like everything, really. And the actors are genius, right? The way they walk becomes a laugh, or, kind of everything, really. A hand gesture, an intonation, the repetition of a phrase, right, becomes kind of an occasion for a laugh. I think I don't think I've seen anything this good, really, you know.
In a while. It's choreographed and it's prepared. And you can see it playing on a stage. You can see that the scenes were playing on a stage, and they work very, very well there as well.
Yes.
The script is that sharp. So we should maybe just quickly say what it's about, because there may be people who don't know the Birdcage. I didn't actually know what the Birdcage was about. I'd been looking forward to seeing it for a while, and I think I'd mentioned to you some time ago, I'd like to watch this, and maybe you just weren't in the mood that day or something, so I didn't, and I've been waiting to watch it. So it's adapted from La Cage aux Folles, but I also didn't know what the La Cage aux Folles was. So it's this gay couple, which in this is Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. And Robin Williams' son, who's 20, shows up one day. Oh, well, I should say the gay couple run a nightclub called the Birdcage, a drag club. And it opens on this wonderful scene of show tunes and whatnot in the nightclub, and also Nathan Lane upstairs crying hysterically that he's not being respected and so on. Robin Williams' son comes home one day, and he's 20 years old, and he's met Callista Flockhart, who he wants to marry. Callista Flockhart's dad is a very, very conservative senator, and his wife with him is, part of the political partnership. And he's just been involved in a terrible scandal where his partner in this moral organisation that they have has been caught or died having sex with a black underage hooker. So the families are destined to meet. The conservative parents are going to come over to the gay parents for dinner, and they've not been told that the parents are gay. They've been told it's a regular old heterosexual mother and father relationship. They've not been told the nightclub or anything like that. And, of course, the press are chasing them as well. And the son manages to convince his dad to turn his life briefly straight and take away all of the extremely camp decor and try and keep away Nathan Lane, who's extremely campy and, what's the word? Queenie, I suppose.
Yes.
And, of course, it all goes wrong. And I must say, what I actually liked, I liked the film throughout, but the first half, when it's the build-up to the evening and the preparations and the kind of the shifting relationships, so initially Robin Williams is not happy about this. He doesn't want to have to pretend that he's not who he is for a night.
Yes.
And when he says that to his son, I went, good for you. And then of course he does, because that's how the second half of the film is going to happen. Then Nathan Lane, they try not to tell him, he finds out. He's very, very hurt, and then he kind of understands, and then he's hurt again. And
actually, I want to interrupt there for a moment, because I do think that Nathan Lane's performances is one of the greatest in film history, really, one of the greatest ever. And part of the reason why is because, and people say this about great, great, great performers, and I've very rarely experienced it. I mean, I actually can't remember, but there's no one I can think of at this moment who makes you laugh and cry at the same time. And actually, there were moments with Nathan Lane where he was so hurt and betrayed, and I found myself welling up, right? Because you can understand why he's so... I mean, here's a child he's raised his whole life and loved, and now he does... he wants to shun him in public. He wants to pretend that they don't have a relationship. I mean, that's heartbreaking. And it really made me well up. And then a second later, he says something, and you can't help but laugh.
Yeah.
Right? So, these actors who can make you laugh and cry at the same time, practically. I mean, this a work
well, that's
of
the
genius.
magic of his performance. So the magic is that he gets hurt. He's hurt in a very Queenie way. Yeah. And that's very funny, because he's always hurt in an over-the-top way, or in a way that he's hurt for real reasons and in real ways, but what he says doesn't quite match what you think. So he'll be hurt that, he'll be hurt in a very real way, but then it'll be about his eyebrows don't look right, or something like that. Like, that's not the real thing here, but that's what matters to him, or that's how he expresses it in this moment, and that's what's funny.
Yes. Well, I think what's important is that you feel the hurt.
Yeah.
And you share it with him, right? And then there'll be an intonation or a twist, or that'll just make you laugh out loud, and it happens all the time. And in different ways, right? Like, the performance is genius because so much of it has to do with movement or hand gestures or voice intonations, right? I mean, it is something that you have to be like super skilled to do. To even think of that is, kind of quite extraordinary, yeah? That you can just raise your voice a little bit and that will get you a laugh. I mean, it's amazing. Or at the beginning when he's hiding, the way he's got his legs shaped is funny, right? Like, so kind of, I mean, to even think about it, I think is kind of quite extraordinary. And I think the film, so when you were saying a lot of it wouldn't fly now.
Well, yeah, I want to get back to this.
Yeah. I think, well, maybe it's a pity that a lot of it wouldn't fly, because on the one hand, you can understand why it wouldn't fly, right?
Well, I want to think about what wouldn't fly. Because
So what wouldn't fly to you?
Well, I think and when I say what wouldn't fly, I'm really thinking about like what would get a Twitter backlash. And I think the Twitter backlash would be, for one thing, straight people playing gay. I think, and especially so campy. Well, Nathan Lane is gay, but Robin Williams, Hank Azaria are not. And I think that wouldn't fly. And also Hank Azaria playing a Guatemalan, as he does, would get a really awful response.
Why? Isn't he Puerto Rican or something?
Hank Azaria, he's American.
I know, but I think he is of Puerto Rican origin.
Well, I'm not sure it would. Well, I think it would get a.
He's Latino, is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, but he doesn't present as sort of what he presents. I think there might be an issue. I think people would find issue with that. They'd like to take issue with that because I think they would see the broad strokes, and there are some broad strokes in the performances. But the thing is, what you actually see, which I think is where the film is so brilliant, is you see the humanity. And you see the film basically saying that these gay people, who are as campy as you like, are real, normal human people who have real, normal human feelings. And that's what you get at underneath everything. You even get that in Hank Azaria's character, even though his is much more of a sketch than Nathan Lane's. But I think people would be keen to see past that, I mean, maybe I'm just being judgmental of Twitter or whatever, but my initial response was, wow, this is kind of, this is bold.
I mean, to me, the issue more is that the film is quite conservative or quite heteronormative, as people would say now, about its conceptualization of gender roles and relationships. Yeah, one is the husband, the other one is the wife. Yeah, it's almost like there's nothing kind of, in between. And, there's a kind of a performativity of those gender roles over and over and over and over again, right?
Because even in Robin Williams and Nathan Lane's relationship, before they have to put something on for the conservative family, they are still playing a husband and wife, really. Yeah. And they refer to each other as husband and wife, really.
That's right. But to me, you see, that's part of the joke, right?
Yeah.
So that's why when they're in the middle of the dinner party, when basically she's so conservative, like she clearly hasn't given any thought, Alban hasn't given any thought to any of it, right? Or Armand is what they call him in this film?
Armand is Robin Williams.
Okay, and
you want Nathan Lane's character?
Nathan Lane is, because in the French movie it was Alban and
Albert.
Albert, okay, so I saw that first. When they have that conversation about abortion, kill the mother, let her go down with the ship. Right? I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable. So, but I think it's comedy, right? And it's playing with different things. You can't be literal about kind of everything. I think those things would be a problem, but I don't think they should be, really. I mean, so on the one hand, they are playing like. It is very heteronormative in the sense that even within queer relationships, it's seen as a binary. But on the other hand, the very act of constantly performing it kind of demonstrates how it's constructed, really, and how it's learned. And, I think the scenes with Gene Hackman and, Albert are hilarious, really, when he finds himself kind of falling for him, her, right? Kind of, I think it's kind of genius, the way that it's played, actually.
I had a problem with the son, and obviously the son is a kind of, in a sense, he's an antagonist for a long time, because at least he's a central kind of source of tension and drama in the film, because he's the one who kind of insists that his parents need to play straight to appease his fiance's parents, and it totally makes sense in the drama, right? And it totally makes sense that you could be that concerned and think, oh well, it's just for one day. It's not unreasonable to have that kind of reaction, or have that impulse. But I found the character quite inhumane in the way he went about it. He didn't seem to have very much remorse about it. He was kind of apologetic, but I felt like he was being kind of unsympathetic to his dad, to his mum.
I mean, he's obviously...
I I wanted to feel more fear in him, basically. Like, it was clear that he was scared, or it was clear he should have been. I wanted to feel it, though. I didn't feel that he was so scared that he was being driven to, basically, it's quite disrespectful what he's asking of them.
I must say, I didn't feel that way. I mean, I think, if you look at it in another way, he's basically just asking his stepfather to stay away for a day. That's all. If you think of the sacrifices that parents make for their children, or actually that are made within families for when, to ask someone to stay away for a day is not the end of the world, right? It's made the end of the world because of who Albert is.
But that's the thing, away. He doesn't ask. He doesn't ask honestly. If he goes to his dad and brings it up, and even the way he asks his dad is not open enough. I did feel... basically, what I felt from the kid was I wanted to feel less like I don't like this guy, because ultimately what he's asking is not that unreasonable. It's not very nice, but it's not that unreasonable. And if he asks his parents in an honest and open way, I would feel that less.
But you remember the story I told you about my mom, right? Like, how are you feeling? A bit low. A bit low. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of Albert, right?
I'm not saying Albert wouldn't explain.
So,
and I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill either. The thing is, I don't think that if my wish had been satisfied by the kid's, tone, let's say, I don't think that it would have stopped the drama from developing the way it does. Like, I think you could have still had the film if the kid had behaved just slightly differently.
Okay, let me reframe this a little bit, because, I think that a film that makes me laugh that hard and that big and that often already earns kudos, right? Like, it's a huge laugh every 30 seconds practically. But I do think that there is something about aspects not being true somehow, so that it does have, so obviously it's theatrical and so on, and it's very heightened, very stylized, but I think the whole point of art is to get through that stylization, or artifice to some kind of truth, really. And that I never felt, So maybe there's something else there. I mean, I don't think that the son is so in love with Calista Flockhart that, he'll destroy, that line, how many lives do you have to destroy? I never felt that. Also, the thing with the mother, I didn't believe a mother.
The birth mother, you mean?
Sorry?
The birth mother.
The Kristen Baranski character. I don't believe a birth mother could be living 10 miles away and have never seen her son in 20 years. I don't believe that.
I entirely believe that.
Can you?
Yeah. I'm sure that happens a lot.
Really? Okay, well, I found that hard to believe. Especially when the parents got along, right?
Well, that does make it a little bit less believable, I must say. I can imagine her not being involved in her son's life. I can't quite imagine her not ever speaking to the dad for 20 years if they got along.
So you see, that kind of didn't quite wash with me. But it is a farce. I mean, what comes across most clearly and most movingly is the love between the Robin Williams character and the...
Nathan
Lane, yeah. And actually, that ease, that depth of feeling, that comes across super clearly. And actually, that was a kind of, even in 1996, that was a statement to make, that this kind of love and feeling amongst two people who are already old, who are not very attractive, so that is a value. So am I rethinking? I'm just thinking aloud now, because on the one hand I do think it's a comic masterpiece. On the other hand, I'm asking myself now, is it really?
No, it is. Definitely is. It made you laugh so hard, and like I say, sometimes you laugh at stuff that ain't funny, but this was all funny.
Well, I always laugh at stuff that's funny to me.
Yeah. You always laugh at me, which is why I question your judgment.
Yeah, right.
I want to ask you about your response to it in 1996, as best you can remember.
Actually, I saw it with Victor Perkins in Coventry at one of those huge multiplexes. And he thought it was a great film, which, for Victor was, I'd never heard him say that before.
Right.
about a film that wasn't more than 40 years old. I think he loved the same films over and over again and increasingly intensely. Yeah, the Magnificent Ambersons, kind of Nicholas Ray films, O'Fools films, things like that. But I'd never heard him say that about a contemporary film, and he thought it was like terrific. And I think a lot of that really has to be the writing, the writing and the performing. I mean, I think Elaine May really must take a great deal of credit for this. I'm not taking anything away from Mike Nichols. He is directing kind of these performances and he's giving them space. In fact, there was a shot, two shots actually, that I saw 25 years ago. I've not seen this film since, and I remember them, and that was like the opening, where you're going through all this ocean right into the birdcage and inside.
Boogie Nights long take into the club. The
image of Nathan Lane as Judy Garland, right, from A Star Is Born with the freckles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that got a laugh from me, just, the recognition, so funny. And the shot of Christine Baranski on the bridge.
Helicopter shot.
The helicopter shot going back, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, those I've never forgotten. There were things that I hadn't noticed the first time that I thought were hilarious, right? Like, so, when they're in Christine Baranski's waiting room and he's reading a book called something all about butts. Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of, he's reading this book all about butts and the secretary's reading Nietzsche. Yeah. Right? So, I thought that was heaven, really.
Yeah. I keep thinking about the composition of the shots, where just simple things like choosing an interesting or evocative place to put the camera, like when Robin Williams goes to see the birth mother, and they end up, sort of getting a bit drunk and flirting together again after these 20 years, and you can sort of see how they got together 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Even though he says, I'll try it for one night, see what the guys are on about.
Yes.
But you can see how they fell into bed together, because they kind of nearly do again. And the camera is down by her legs, and he's got his hand on her legs. And it's just this little subtle thing, but it's right there. Yeah. And you totally, in fact, she sits on the desk and crosses her legs. She's got this short skirt on, and you see all the way up her thighs. She's got very, very long legs, and he notices them, and the camera's there to emphasise. It's really elegantly done, actually.
It is. And I love the confidence with which the film moves from farce to musicals. They burst into song, right? They burst into song at that seduction scene. They burst into song at the dinner, right? Like, kind of, there's enormous ease and fluidity and elegance, actually, in all of that. And I also thought that what was interesting is it's a film that lacks meanness.
Yeah.
Kind of, even when you're laughing at a pratfall or the Hank Azaria character, right? He's just meant to be a comic turn throughout, right? But he's not dehumanized. You don't laugh at him. You see the interaction with Albert, right? It's very loving and affectionate and, and so on. So you could have been really mean about the Gene Hackman character, but you're not. The film isn't, right? The film is often mean about his ideas, but then the film wins you over about with a character, he loves his daughter, kind of, he's attracted to Albert, the wig at the end.
It's consistently cynical about his politics and about the way politics is performed.
Yes.
And the way that the media is involved as well. It's consistently cynical about that. But if he hasn't won you over by, as you say, he loves his daughter and he gets on with Albert and he's such a sucker that he doesn't see, whereas his wife is clearly suspicious of Albert. If he hasn't kind of won you over in some way, he definitely will when you see him in drag.
Yeah. And again, that's really kind of wonderfully done, because they don't turn his drag into a comic turn. Right, he looks so vulnerable. Yeah, like the moment of where with him, he looks smashing actually, but he also looks like deeply vulnerable. Like you feel for him at that moment, right?
And he's hurt that no one will dance with him.
Yeah,
and he really is hurt.
Yes, he is.
Poor guy.
So, I had seen La Cage aux Folles, the Edward Molinaro film, with this genius French actor. What's his name?
Michel Serrault?
Yeah, Michel Serrault playing Albin. And that was brilliant. But actually, the films are quite problematic in a lot of ways. They're much more problematic than this one. But I saw all three of them. In one, he goes to Ugo Tognazzi's family in Italy, right? And they have to do the wine harvest, the grape harvest for the wine, which is quite hilarious. But there is something, if you think this is problematic or this would kind of raise a Twitter, that would even more so,
But the reason, like I said, I want to clarify. When I say I think it would raise a bit of a Twitter storm, I would be criticising Twitter for that.
Yes.
But, I think this is a really fair, even-handed, fun, humane movie that doesn't, as you said, doesn't have a bad word to say about anyone.
Yeah.
And actually, it takes these characters, some of whom are really broad stereotypes in some respects, and shows you their humanity and shows you that they can get hurt and they're people in all this.
Yeah, they're all huge stereotypes, actually. But the film kind of goes beyond that. Anyway, and I also saw the Broadway show that was based on those French films, the musical. Actually, Nikki and I saw it performed in Buenos Aires. Yes, by a great singer, whose name I now forget, but this most incredible voice, actually, kind of on stage. It was fantastic. So this is material that is theatrical through and through. Yeah, and I think the film respects the theatricality of the material and works with it, to great effect, really. It is kind of amazing, I think.
So I said some of these are kind of stereotypes, and you went, they're all stereotypes, actually.
Yes.
Do you think they are, do you think they're overly inauthentic in that?
Well, I think it's farce, isn't it, right? So you are dealing kind of with highly stylized outre outlines of something, right? So
it's kind of hard to believe that someone like Nathan Lane actually exists in the world, but a few people do.
You're
not a million miles away.
Well, I have seen people who are even closer.
Yeah.
Right. So I have no problem believing that people like that exist in real life, though I think in life gender is much more fluid than the film presents it, right? Even in its extremity. So, for example, if Albin would have been, kind of somebody who, was gender mismatched, let's say, right? Which is kind of almost what the persona suggests. Then, and people who who have gone through life, kind of, wearing women's clothing, or kind of wanting to be women and really suffering for it, right? Like, kind of, when Paris is Burning, you see, like, kind of, people are murdered before they're 25 or something, and kind of they need money to get their operations and go on. So the thing about Albin, this is a farce. So in a way, nothing terrible happens. He works in a nightclub. He lives in Palm Beach. Yeah, he can wear what he like. Yeah, so that's the sunniness of the film. Yeah. If you put that in any major city in the world, he's somebody who would probably have been beaten up a lot of times, who would have suffered terrible discrimination. There would have been a lot more hurt. Though I think Nathan Lane is very good at also communicating a kind of hurt.
There's an incredible subtlety in the performances that Robin Williams and Nathan Lane give, and it's partially in that, but it's also physically. Look at the way they move.
Yes.
So there's there's an example that's quite obvious, which is where Nathan Lane comes in dressed in a suit, and he's tried to match their expectations, tried to match what they want, and then he starts to walk, and it's that campy walk, and then he turns it into a masculine walk, and then he sits down in a campy way, then he turns it into a masculine way. Very obvious the way he's changing his performance there. But then also you see it throughout the film with Robin Williams, and it's much more subtle because he's not trying to behave any particular way when he is being himself. That's the way he is, and then he changes in order to try and be the father, the man of the house when the conservative parents arrive, and it's easier for him. He has a better handle on it than Nathan Lane does, but still you see in his performance there's a stiffness to it that he doesn't feel free in there.
I was going to say, though I immediately backtrack in my head, because what I was going to say is that Robin Williams gives the greater performance, because it's so subtle. And actually, sometimes there'll just be a shift in his eyes, and you can see this hurt, right, from his son, or, Like, and actually, he doesn't do anything. It's almost like his eyes cloud over or something, right? Like it's so subtle and minute what he does, but you feel it. You feel what he feels, really, right? Whereas Nathan Lane's performance is a more theatrical one. Actually, I think no less greater, and maybe even greater. Yeah, but it's a theatrical one. It's kind of, it's made out of intonations of voice, out of, the way you say lines, about the way you hold body, about costuming, right? So okay, let me put it another way. They're both great performances, but one is very external, and the other one is very interior. I mean, also external, like there's the little nuances of hand gestures and so on, but it's mostly an internal performance. You really see into his mind, so
anyway, it's a great film. I'm really, really glad I've seen it. It's fucking funny.
Yes, I highly recommend it. All right, well, on that note, we are eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much for listening.
Goodbye.